Alright, so today we're going to be changing the front brake pads on my 2007 SV650. A lot of other bikes have this same caliper, the first gen SVs and the third gen SVs, V-Stroms. I'll put a link in the description, but a lot of bikes have these calipers and the procedure will be pretty much the same for all those bikes too, so let's go. So the first step is popping the caliper off. These are just 14mm bolts. It should be easy peasy. Pop these two bad boys off. And get the caliper off. A nice thing to do when you're changing the pads is take out the last bolt. So the caliper's free. But what I'm going to do is move the pads about halfway up the rotor, like this, and then I'm going to just wiggle the caliper a little bit like that. And you'll feel the pads getting pushed back and the pistons getting pushed back. That's going to make things easier. There we go. That's going to make things easier when we put the caliper on with the fresh pads in. So we'll pull the caliper. Caliper's unbolted. If you're checking your pads, make sure all four corners, top, bottom, right and left, have life left. These are fine. I'm just putting a different compound in. So then there's a little clip down here. You can see this guy that goes through the pad pin. So just grab that with a needle nose pliers. And my pliers are stuck. Pull that sucker out of there. Pad pin should fall right out. So now the pads are loose. So pop those guys out. This guy will swing around and come right off. Set that down. And this guy is free then, just to pull out. Make sure to take a look at your pad pin. Mine has some wear. You can see where the pads are rubbing on it. A little bit of wear is fine. You just want to make sure it's not close to breaking, because that would be a catastrophic failure. So clean this guy up. This pad pin up. Maybe give this a spray of isopropyl alcohol, something like that. Don't want to use brake cleaner anywhere where it could get into the seals. Brake cleaner is actually bad for brake seals. It's good for grime and this kind of brake dust, stuff like that, but you don't want to get it on the seals. So give the caliper a little cleanup, and then we'll put the new pads in. I know from the factory some of the outer pads that are touching the piston in the caliper. So I know some of the outer pads that are touching the pistons when they're in the caliper have a stainless steel little snap-on thingy on the back for heat transfer. I don't have that. I lost it or whatever. But if it has it on there, it's easy just to get off with a screwdriver or a pliers and then pop that sucker on the new pad that you're going to put on the inside pistons. So now we've got our caliper cleaned up. I just used some isopropyl alcohol on this. Yeah, clean it up. Make sure this pin is clean. Make sure your pad pin is cleaned up. There's a little bit of wear on there, but it's alright. So then what you're going to want to do is take your inside pad, which looks like this, has this ear on it. So it goes upside down against the pistons. Just like that. And it should push against the spring on the top here, and that should hold it into place. Then you grab your outside pad. There'll be two holes on it, a round hole and an oblong hole. So the round hole goes on this pin, like that, and then drops into the caliper like that. Then you might have to push down a little bit on here. So you take our pin, I cleaned mine up a little bit, just a little bit of brake cleaner. So the pad pin goes in. You might have to put a little bit of pressure on these, on the spring in there to get this in. Then you'll spin the top of this until you can see the hole right there. So you'll spin the pad pin until you can see that hole. And then your little Jesus clip goes in there. So the flat side of the clip goes towards the top of the caliper. Jesus clip goes on, and make sure Like right now it's only half on, so make sure you get a good snap and it's actually all the way on there. And I'll even take my pliers and just give it a push just to make sure. I want to make sure when that pin is going on, you can see there's kind of two steps. Don't get tricked and think that it's installed when it's just like this. You got to push it one more time and get it clipped in like that. So that is fully installed. You can pull on the end of this just to make sure it won't spin. But even so, I don't like that the SV has just this clip holding this pin in, because this clip falls out, this pin falls out, your brake pads fall out. You have a big problem. So what I like to do, some silicone, anything ORC, anything you can find at the hardware store, and on the end of that pin, get that into focus, on the end of that pin, all I do is put a big glob on there, like that. Because when that dries, that won't allow that pin to fall out, even if that clip falls out. So now we're ready to install. So it's a little tricky to do, but try to hold the pads apart with one hand like that. So holding the pads apart, make sure they're on either side of the rotor, and then it's easy. You just line your bolts up, line your mounting bolts up. There's one. There's the other. So cinch those down. I'm going to get out the torque wrench, and these are set to 28 foot-pounds. Front brake caliper mounting bolt is 28 foot-pounds. So we check. Yes, we got 28 foot-pounds. Give it a click, click, double check, double check. Now all you have to do is the pistons are still pushed back from when we took the caliper off. So you're gonna have to pump your master cylinder a few times until you feel pressure, and then you're ready to go. Your pads are changed.